There we go. And so we're delighted that you could join us for this seminar, Walking Together, Young Adults and Religious. I think it's going to be very exciting. We've got some stellar panelists to introduce to you. But I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dennis, Brother Dennis. He's on our board, and there's a few more board members. Here comes Michael MacLean. He's on our board as well. So here we are. So I'm in the speaking to you from the city of Hamilton, Ontario. So I'll do the land acknowledgement that's associated with Hamilton. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. So, and I ask you to put yourselves on mute if you're not speaking. If you could put yourselves on mute.
Es-tu connecté, là? Ça laisse,
Oh, and I should say interpretation on the bottom of the screen.
Ah,
So
oui,
you can
mais
click on
probablement,
that.
normalement, ils doivent avoir mis un signe en bas qui dit interprétation.
Violaine, do you want to say?
Oui. Bonjour aux gens qui parlent français. Pour cliquer sur l'icône d'interprétation, normalement, elle est au bas, hein, dans la
il
bande
devrait
du
être là.
bas. Il est
Ah, il est
écrit
là.
interprétation.
Regarde, tu t'en vas là.
Cliquez sur français.
Choisis français. Ah, tu vois, c'est ça. Il est en bas. Je ne savais pas où il était. Ben, je savais qu'ils mettent une barre comme ça, mais je savais pas.
Aussi, Louise Garneau, si c'est possible, juste de fermer le micro quand vous ne prenez pas la parole. Mais bienvenue.
Ton micro.
Okay, I'll mute her there. Okay, and I'd also like to introduce Milena Ashendum there. Milena, I'm going to try to
Clique sur ta caméra
spotlight.
si tu n'as pas de caméra. Clique. OK.
There's Milena.
Hi everyone, bonjour tout le monde.
So Milena is our communications coordinator, and you'll be seeing her in around the well. And I want to remove the spotlight. Okay, so now Jason. Oh no. Okay. Be patient for me. Okay, spotlight. There's Jason. Jason Cegayle is the regional animator for Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, for Manitoba and Thunder Bay, and is the youth and young adult ministry leader at Mary, Mother of the Church Parish in Winnipeg. Jason shares his passion for teaching and accompanying young people in their faith journey and encouraging others to live their faith through service, justice, and charity. And then we have Kevin Devotta. Kevin is a registered social worker who ministers in a lower income, racially diverse neighborhood in Toronto. Kevin spent time discerning a vocation to the priesthood and is now a passionate member of Concerned Lay Catholics, a grassroots Canadian organization dedicated to affirming the laity's role of co-responsibility in the church. Kevin has volunteered with Catholic youth-focused organizations in 5 countries and firmly believes young Catholics have the potential to help the universal church thrive again, if only given the opportunity to lead and to serve. Thank you, Jason. Kevin. Okay, Ava. Ava MacLean is an Indigenous settler with Métis, Ukrainian, and Scottish roots. She is a middle school teacher with the Saskatoon Catholic School Division for the last 5 years. Ava graduated from the University of Saskatchewan in the Saskatchewan Urban Native Teacher Education Program. They were awarded the St. Thomas More Campus Ministry Award and the STM Indigenous Achievement Award for their involvement in the Newman Center student group, Newman Sounds Glee Club, as well as their commitment to the community of St. Thomas More College. That's Ava. Sister Sarah Rudolph is a member of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, more commonly known as the Loretto Sisters. She currently serves as the director of the Mary Ward Center in Toronto and leads on advocacy for women and children. She holds a Master of Arts in International Affairs from Carleton University and a Master of Divinity from Regis College in Toronto. She has a deep love of Ignatian spirituality, which she shares through women's ministry, young adult ministry, and ministry to those experiencing homelessness and recovery from addiction. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
And now Brother Michael. Okay, Friar Michael Paris was born and raised in Saskatchewan. He's a non-ordained Franciscan friar, brother, solemnly professed since 2019. Michael holds certificates in youth ministry, lay ministry, liturgical studies, and spiritual direction, along with a Bachelor of Theology degree. Brother Michael is the guardian local leader of the Franciscan community in Cochrane, Alberta, where he serves as part of the retreat team and is on the Canadian Franciscan Provincial Council. Welcome, Michael. And then we've got Sister Violaine. Here she is. Sister Violaine worked as an actress for a few years before experiencing a return to God that made her leave everything to enter the congregation of Notre Dame Novitiate. She pursued studies in pastoral theology with the Dominicans while working at the Student Center. This living environment allowed her to combine her faith, her passion for the theater, and for young adults. For 3 years, Violaine has been working as a social pastoral worker in Montreal. She deeply believes in social justice, in the preferential option for the poor, and she dreams of seeing us all together as church commit ourselves more in this way. Thank you, Violaine. And last but not least, we have the facilitator of the conversation today, Sister Susan Kidd, as her mother would say. Sister Sue comes to us from the University of PEI, where she's been a campus minister since 2010. A congregation of Notre Dame sister, Sue serves on their Inter-Province Vocation Committee, as well as chairing the CND World Youth Day 2023 committee. With past experience as a high school teacher and chaplaincy team leader, province vocation director, missionary in Cameroon, and an ongoing interest in external communication, she's happy to join the Vocations Canada panel today. Okay, here we are. So you can see that we've got a great team there, and so I'm going to try to, I think, hit everybody. There we go. And Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, great. Thank you, Nancy, very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this panel conversation. Just so that you know a bit of background, we did have a few I had a few conversations with our panelists. The format for the evening is going to be more like your kitchen table conversation than a panel of people speaking one after another. So we'd like to, I will initiate questions. I have no concern that they will carry the ball and carry it with great energy. We'd like to invite you, our guests at our table, to, if you have a question that you would like them to address, don't wait till the end. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat as the time unfolds. And then at maybe the halfway mark, I might intervene and say, let's pause and answer a few of our questions. And then we'll go back to the kitchen table. So don't wait till the very end. Our experience is sometimes we run out of time, and we want to be sure not only to hear from our panelists, but also to hear from our guests. So I'm running the risk of mixing my metaphors a little bit. We're leaving the kitchen table, friends. And in keeping with the imagery of the Synod, we're going to go camping. It was a beautiful day here today on Prince Edward Island. So we're heading off to the campground. We're going to pitch our tent. And I'm asking each of our 6 panelists, what are you bringing with you this weekend as we go camping on Prince Edward Island? And for this part, I'm just going to go through who I see first. Sister Sarah, you're right beside me on my screen. What are you bringing, Sarah?
Okay, I've already told you I'm not much of a camper, but this would entice me to come camping. Jiffy Pop popcorn. I can cook it over the fire and share it with people, and just a nice sense of hospitality and fun.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you. Kevin, how about you? What are you going to bring camping?
I get a little antsy if I'm just sitting in one place, so I'm going to bring some hiking shoes so I can go explore, walk around a little bit, see what else is around us.
Very cool. Very cool. How about you, Brother Michael? What does the guy from the West bring?
What's the guy from the West bring? Well, if Kevin's going hiking and Sarah has popcorn, that means that we need more of that. So I'm going to bring a cooler full of good cold drinks and a cooler full of lots of snacks so that everybody has lots to eat.
Fabulous. Good Franciscan hospitality. Wonderful. Ava, how about you? What are you going to bring from Saskatchewan?
I am going to bring a flashlight so that we all can feel very comforted and not be worried about what's in front of us, and we know where we're going.
See, those grade 8s must be very happy with you as their teacher.
Grade 7.
Grade 7, sorry, grade 7s. Sister Violaine, so what are you bringing?
Is there any staff?
Moi, j'apporterais, en plus de toutes les bonnes choses qui ont été dites, de l'eau, en fait, de l'eau, parce qu'il me semble que c'est un petit peu indispensable. C'est mon côté pratique.
That's my practical sense there. And matches, but not to encourage fires. If ever we want to heat ourselves up, or else cook our mushrooms, the marshmallows, and things of that nature. And I think that I need to do something to make a cover over our heads. I was in Scouts, so that's what I would bring.
You also changed the rules a little bit. I counted 3 or 4 things that you brought, but that's okay. Our tent is getting very big. That's okay. Jason, please, from Winnipeg, what are you going to bring camping?
Well, so for me, it seems like everybody has a lot of entertainment, has a lot of like food and a lot of different things that we could bring to survive. I would like to bring some entertainment. I would bring a melodica with me. So it's sort of like this like small mini piano that you kind of like blow into. So you have some entertainment, but if you end up getting lost, you have some sort of device that can attract people to come and help you, if there is anybody else left.
Anybody else out there? Thank you very much. You can see that our panelists have a great blend of practicality and fun. You know that we're going to have food and beverage and activity and entertainment. Unfortunately, the Synod calls us not only to enlarge our tent, but we have to leave our tent. Good thing Kevin has his hiking boots, because we're going to leave our tent. Fortunately, we're not leaving alone. The Synod also calls us to walk together, which is part of what the Vocations Canada conference in April gave us the invitation to walk together. One of our speakers at the conference, Sister Elizabeth Davis, encouraged us to read the Continental document, the Continental Stage document. So I dutifully obeyed what Sister told me to do. And I noted that in the document that there was ways that it said that synodality not only is a way of being church, but it is the way of being church. And I think that us gathering here in this event, under this tent, for these few moments is an opportunity for us to be church. The document named the resistance and the fear of some of our clergy. It named the passivity of some people of our lay people. It also named a meager presence of the voice of young adults. But what I'm experiencing with these people and what we experienced at our conference was a great deal of energy, a great deal of hope and enthusiasm. So for the next while, I'm going to have our campers share a little bit of their experience of not only of synodality, but of young adults and of religious, and the hope that they can bring to us of walking together. Just a reminder, if you want to put a question in the chat, feel free to do that. But I guess at our table that is in our tent, I'd like to toss out the first question to our 6 panelists just to see sort of where they're going. And it's one that I hear a lot, and it's about different things. And it's, so what? What's all the hype about? Why do we need to worry about synodality? Why should we focus on walking together? Haven't people walked away? Why should we walk together? I started the last one with Sarah. This time, Kevin, I'm going to put the hot light on you to start us. And then I'm going to be quiet. The 6 of you jump in. Kevin, please.
Thanks, Sister Sue. That's a good question. So what? I think what comes to my mind is, looking at the future of the church, right? And whenever we're talking about the future, we're talking about the youth and what's there to draw the youth in, right? So we know that a lot of youth are leaving, or maybe not leaving, but maybe not engaging with the church. And so what can we do to help them engage? I think there are many different things we could do. There are organizations that exist that already exist that are trying to help lay people find their voice in the church. So, for example, the organization that I'm part of, Concerned Lay Catholics, tries to help lay people find their role in the church. Right there, how do we engage in this idea of co-responsibility, which the Synod talks a lot about too. So I think that's one way, like being part of an organization that's sort of encouraging that. Or then what else comes to mind is another group that I take part in is it's run by the Redemptorists by Father Mike and Father Santo, who you could see on the screen over there. It's called Ignite, and it's a youth-led, or it's a youth ministry in downtown Toronto, and it gives lots of opportunities for young Catholics to come together to meet with religious, to engage with each other and find their spot in the church too. So I think there are different ways that we can help encourage young people to find their place and their role in the church.
Thanks, Kevin. Who else from our panel? They did say that I might need to nudge them. Brother Michael, I see you unmuting.
I'll just piggyback off of Kevin. I think as religious, we need to provide space and opportunity for young adults, if we're going to use that terminology, for space for them to gather. We know that that's happening in places across Canada, but are we purposefully doing that and being aware that in that age demographic, there's different scenarios? I think sometimes as church, we hear young adults and we think everybody's single. Well, the majority of the young adults that I know are young parents. And so what are we doing to walk with them and bring them into the journey? I'm journeying with people that are worried about the state of the church for their children. I'm journeying with people that are excited about the state of the church for their children and where the church is going. So I think as religious, it's continually invitation for us to pay attention to the broad spectrum of what this age demographic is and how we can provide space that the big church is sometimes forgetting about, where it just becomes a number instead of a real human being in front of us, and that their journey matters. So that's what I would like to add to that.
And I think it's important too that we remember that a lot of young adults, I'd say, are in a process of discernment, so maybe, yes, some have chosen a vocation, they're married, but maybe there are many others that are really searching. And along with searching for maybe vocational or career kinds of decisions, There's also a sense of spiritual seeking. So even if they perhaps have walked away from the church at some point, there is still a desire to connect to the divine, you know, and to encounter spaces of prayer and connection and spiritual intimacy. I know I've offered different prayer groups through the Mary Ward Centre where I minister in Toronto, and we've had a mix of young professionals and students come and join us. But I've also offered retreats where I've had people like sort of, let's say, general public come in, where people are really seeking spiritual connection, but maybe not in a specifically like in a religious or a church setting. And so these are really important spaces where we are on the margins, I think, and we can offer that kind of connection and maybe a reintroduction to the church itself. But definitely through connecting and offering places of prayer and spiritual encounter.
Oui, ben, je vais rebondir.
Yeah, well, I'd like to, I'm going to speak in French. So for me, when I think of the question, there are many things that were named already, and it's the importance of being there with and among young people as much as possible, to listen to them, as that was stated, to show, and also something about being interested by what they are experiencing, what they're living. But that goes in both directions, because at times young people are interested by the religious the experiencing, but it's a give and take in there. But for them to know who we are, well, we have to open our homes, our houses, our retreat centers, as Sarah's center, walk with them, then seeking out their vocation. It's a call to holiness, as the Pope Francis reminds us, and highlighted in the Vocation Canada kit. So we often heard about this during the conference, that sometimes we have an image of religious life or a picture of it. So we have to help young people in this desire to respond to the call of holiness. Sometimes they want to hear it that way rather than be a sister or a brother. And therefore, my experience in Montreal, there's a family group that are working with young adults. So we're trying to see how, with sisters and brothers, the different communities that come together to walk with young people. And there is an initiative that was made in terms of the religious communities also, which is to do a pilgrimage, propose to young people and anybody to walk into to go and visit different communities in Montreal, in a certain part of Montreal. So there's all kinds of initiatives like that. But I think that we have to, on the young people's side, I don't know what you think about this, but the other panelists think about this. We have to see, we have the young people have to know that things exist, and talking particularly in places where the religious are not, where the people are not related directly to the church. People have to know that the church does exist and the communities exist in today, and not only as it existed in the past. And I'm going to stop here.
Perhaps to maybe add on to what Violaine was mentioning, one of the most impactful moments that I had that kind of brought me back into my faith was actually having very close encounters with religious. And so my first encounter was actually with a sister of the Holy Cross, that encouraged me to be part of the community, to be able to reinforce the gifts and the charisms that I had, to be able to empower other young people. So I think there are two words that really pop out for me, and it's this sense of intentional accompaniment and equipment. I think there's going to be such a beautiful space and role if we continue to work together to provide those tools to not only accompany young people, but to also form them, to be leaders, to be disciples as well. It just takes that one special person to say, hey, I see this beautiful gift that you have through the different charisms that the Holy Spirit has given to you by the virtue of your baptism and your relationship with God. That one little gift for that person, it might seem very mundane or not seem like a big deal, but that person needs to be reinforced and formed and trained in the gift that they have to be able to build the wider body of God, his church as well. Throughout my experience as a youth and young adult ministry leader, I remember during my first years of ministry, you know, it just felt like it was the Jason show. It was Jason teaching confirmation. It was Jason doing this, doing that, running back and forth, trying to gather to do a retreat. And I felt exhausted. And I think many of you have probably been in that same situation as well. But throughout time and through God's grace, especially during the pandemic, there was some silver linings in the moments where we were able to build some leadership capacities with young people. So my hope and prayer is that the Synod on synodality will continue to bridge the gaps between religious being able to form young people forming young people as well, and for this continuous relational experience to continue so that we can have more leaders in the church, to feel empowered and to feel like we have a purpose as well.
I'll jump in. When I was listening, there's so many great things that everyone said, and anyway, I was scared to go first and scared to go last because I feel like I have to, you know, speak to all the wonderful things people said. But one of the things that we had talked about on Saturday, Kevin had brought this up, that there is engagement from young adults and from youth. Sometimes they just don't know that engagement is something that goes along so well with the calls that we are all called to, as, you know, as Catholics in the Catholic social teachings. Like I heard somebody say that the Catholic social teachings are the best kept secret of the Catholic Church. And so there is that want and that need that kids, I work with these, you know, grade 7 kids. The kids are 12 years old and they are dying for fairness, and they want people to be treated equally, and they don't care if that means that they get less. They want that. And when they want that in the classroom, and when they hear about that stuff in the real world, they're also set on fire with, like, how could this be happening? How could I have so much when other people have so little?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're fighting to have in the Catholic Church. And if they could see that that was so much of part of it, then maybe they would feel like they want to engage in those ways. I do think the engagement is there, and maybe it's just that the young people or the young adults or the people who are stepping away from the Catholic Church, it might just be because they don't see themselves represented, and also that they don't feel like that they have that place. When I was working in student groups in university, one of the things we always talked about was how can we be hospitable? How can we provide so much hospitality that we're not begging people to come out and be engaged and participate? It's just works so well for them that, like, of course they would. And if we're doing that at universities, then how are we doing that at church? How are we making it so that there's so many people where it's like, this is just great stuff for everybody, that they don't just feel like, oh, I guess I should go to church on Sunday. It's like, no, this is what I'm getting so much out of it. And it's so important for me to see my community and to participate in my community. Because I think that is what we're looking for, is everybody wants to connect. And I think people we're social beings, and we're spiritual beings, and we want to connect, and we want to talk about our spirituality, and we want to hear about the good things and the bad things that our community is experiencing. But how can we make sure that people actually feel like that they have a place, and that people want them there, and people want to see them there, and that they are important to the community. This past year, I actually got married, and we did a little bit of marriage preparation, and I found that it was really difficult. I didn't feel like it was life-giving in the way that I was really hoping that it would be. And I was thinking about how I really wanted to get married in the Catholic Church, but a lot of people my age are sort of feeling like maybe that's not the best option for them, even though they grew up going to Catholic school, they know what Catholic Church looks like. And after the experience of not feeling welcomed in preparing for my marriage, that was really hard. I felt like if I am, a practicing Catholic who's active in my community, and I feel like it's so difficult to jump through so many hoops, Can you imagine how someone who isn't sure if they want to be participating in the Catholic community, if they're not sure if they want to get married in the Catholic Church, how they would feel if they went through the same thing? I felt like it was like really difficult. And already at stressful times in our lives, like planning a wedding, or like Brother Michael said about these people with kids, they have so much on their plate. I think we should be asking about, like, how can we take things off of your plate than adding things onto them? Like, yeah, I just really want us to think about, like, how can we make sure that people see this as something that is life-giving, and not that they're like being tested, you know, like, oh no, if I miss going to church on Sunday, is there going to be somebody talking about it next Sunday? And oh no, and what are they going to think? And oh, maybe I didn't do enough, or maybe I didn't give enough at collection, or whatever. I think there's a lot of fear around participating in a way that's not acceptable. And I think it might be scaring some people away to not participate at all, which is a really scary thought to me, that people would feel that way. And also that there would be people who are making them feel that way.
Thanks, Ava. This is what, so the rest of you, this is what happened on Saturday. We were talking about wonderful ways of connecting, and all of a sudden we got into the challenging ways of connecting. What are the challenges? And it's in people's experiences. What are some of the other challenges, folks, that you've been seeing, that you've been experiencing? Religious or young adult? Anybody?
Some of the challenges that I've been really experiencing when it comes to intentionally accompanying young people is, I feel like sometimes there's this competition, you know, there's this competition between living and sharing the Catholic faith, and then so many different ways as to how young people, especially young adults, are now living their life right now. And sometimes on social media, I'll see some of my friends. I think it was Ava that mentioned, right? We talk about people who are getting married, but not getting married within the church. They're no longer bringing the sacraments within their family. You know, a lot of them have, most of my friends have kind of moved more into this like new age spirituality, where a lot of them think that they themselves are their own powerful being. There's no need to rely on anything outside of us. We are capable and responsible for ourselves. There's a very large sense of relativism, individualism, that we lose the sense of who God is and the greater purpose as to what God made us for. And so for me, sometimes when I see that, I feel a struggle. I feel a struggle, because it is a struggle to be a Catholic nowadays, to be able to live your faith, to be able to have your faith shine out in a world that's very indifferent to the church. And so for me, that's been an incredible obstacle, I would say, when it comes to accompanying young adults in particular. Life becomes very busy, and many things can become idols, such as our jobs, our titles, our friendships or relationships. Anything that comes before God can very much become idolatrous. And we value and worship those things more than our relationship with God. So I think that there's a space for a special type of ministry and pastoral approach in this new day and age, when a lot of times we kind of do feel like we're alone and feeling like we have to find the sense of purpose for ourselves.
Just want to touch on a comment in the chat right now. I think it's from Dennis, about the priest or the bishop sort of being the focal point. And because I'm thinking of an experience I had where at my parish, there's a 74-year-old Monsignor there. And I asked him earlier this year if I could start up a young adults ministry, because we don't really have one at our parish. And the short story is that he basically told me, you know, that's something that he's not very comfortable with, the idea of starting that up. And, you know, just to try to, for me to try to just talk to friends instead of making a parish announcement and trying to ask people to join. And, you know, similar to Ava, where Ava said, you know, if she wasn't already a faithful practicing Catholic, going through the marriage prep program that she did, maybe she would not have continued in the church. After that experience with my parish priest, I was thinking, you know, if I wasn't already fully committed and dedicated to being part of the church, I think I would have just stopped going because it was so disheartening and a complete lack of the sense of accompanying, which I think many of us have already touched on. You know, the importance of that idea of walking with in whatever life stage the young person is at. And so I think, you know, I don't know what the exact answer is. I think it's this moving towards the sense of co-responsibility where lay people and ordained members of the church are able to work together on a more equal setting. I think that would make a big difference. And so if religious today, if they're able to walk with young people, so meet them where they're at. You know, some like Ava was saying, some young people are already very engaged in social justice causes, right? Like climate change is a big thing for a lot of young people. And so meeting them where they're at with that, you know, maybe there's some young people, you know, school age youth who want to, you know, explore what they can do to help fight climate change. And maybe the religious can help them see the connection between that and Catholic social teaching, right? And then if you have you know, a married young couple, they're in a different stage, walking with them at that stage, right? Helping them to see what can they do as a married young couple to be part of the church, and sort of creating, I think kind of, you know, Ava and Jason were talking about it, but just creating this very inclusive environment in the church where, you know, where it's not that you have just like a young adults program or a youth group, and those are the only spaces where young people can feel like they belong, but making the entire parish community sort of a youth-focused community so that young people feel that they belong in all aspects of the community, and not just, you know, the Thursday night youth group, but that in all aspects, in all ministries in the parish, they feel like they belong and that they have a voice and that their voice matters. I think that's something that maybe we want to try to aim for.
Ouais, amen. Je vais peut-être juste ajouter.
Let me just add something to, or to maybe continue along that same vein. One of the challenges that we have today is to be witnesses, true witnesses, and to really kind own that, to be witnesses. You know, the other day I was with young people, and the young people, these young students they want fairness, right? But in society, the importance of getting this testimony, this witness that we give. So I think that witness thing is, it's kind of like the human side of our institutions, not our institutions, but of our walking together, right? Of looking at this human side, as Kevin was saying. You know, it's to be inclusive, to look at the strengths of people, to identify the strengths and accept them, instead of trying to impose another way of seeing things, another way of doing things. Clericalism is very, very present still in our institutions and in the various organizations that we work with. And, you know, the other day we were also saying that another challenge was accepting the person. You know, the fact that we were walking together with a young man or a young woman, a younger, to take that person where that person is, not want to. We gave the example, for example, there are young people for whom adoration is like super important. And so to organize an evening of adoration is going to be something that is going to really nurture them. It's going to touch them. You don't just say, oh, no, that's not important. You know, there's other things that are more important than that. But to kind of like get into that movement of what they would hope for and want. Like, for example, our commitment of social justice to accompany young people to be present where things are happening and where movements exist. And the true challenges we have, not only for the person herself or himself, but for the community as a whole, this human community. I think this human dimension is very important. It's very real today. And I believe that that's how we'll be able to really connect with young people, or maybe allow ourselves to be touched by them too.
As I've been listening, I've been trying to think about how to phrase what it is that I want to say. And I maybe just speak from my experience that as a religious, I feel a certain tension, I guess, in terms of being somebody who offers space, whether it's for spirituality, whether it's reflection on social justice and advocacy kinds of actions, being the attention between being the initiator and wanting, because I work a lot with young adults in these different areas, and also desiring that young adults will be the initiators as well. And so that there is a sense of mutuality, because I feel like as a religious, you're automatically seen as like the expert. You're the expert in prayer, you're the expert in spirituality. And it's like, well, no, I'm not. I have definitely, I've followed a certain path in life, and I have taken vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but I have not like become automatically some expert in spirituality and prayer and relationship with God. And in fact, we're all journeying together in that road, in that spiritual journey. And so my challenge, I think, for myself, and maybe for many of us, is how do we actually journey together in a way that is about equality, about mutuality, so that it's not some kind of an uneven, well, you're the religious, so you're in charge, you just tell me how to pray, or get, you do the work to create this space for the prayer, for whatever, for the reflection, and I will just join you and be part of your group. But in fact, and for myself too, like, how do I open up to either invite people or to encourage that kind of initiation from the other side? Because I think it really needs to be, if we want to change the church, and I'm not speaking in a parish setting, I'm not as active in a parish setting, I'm active, I guess, in my own congregational setting and ministry, but certainly a challenge for us is to be open to inviting young adults to actually take charge of certain things. And so actually in my ministry at the Mary Ward Center, we've had an intern for the past couple of years. We've had a university student come and work in our office and to be part of our social justice and our advocacy initiatives. And really what I wanted her to do was to encourage her to empower young people. So to really initiate programs and be the driver based on her own interests and passions and her own gifts, like to share her gifts with others, but to be that bridge with other young adults. That's one small step, but I think that there's probably a lot of other things we can do. But I really think that there is a challenge for us as religious, for myself personally, to not just be the purveyor of things, but in fact, how do I create a space where it's a mutual relationship, where we're mutually empowered and that we are creating something together?
Amen. I'll jump off of that, because it's so true that mutual work that we can do, instead of us coming as experts all the time, it's not working for the church. It's not working for religious communities. I'm very much aware of that in retreat ministry and the people that walk through these doors. Obviously all age demographics and all walks of life, but I pay attention when the age demographic is younger in a mixed weekend of when we typically see older people coming on retreat. I'm intrigued. Why are you here on retreat? Well, it's because of things that have been said. They're looking for a place of hospitality and welcome. They're looking for a place to discern what is stirring in them, or what has impacted them, or what has like sideswiped them, that they're not lost or losing their faith. They just need some space to be able to discern that and open that up. Which comes to, these are all words that have been mentioned by the panel already, value of who the person is. You know, both Kevin and Ava have shared a hurtful, if you will, or sad experience, one about in wanting to engage a church community with a young adult group, one about marriage prep. I mean, Kevin's experience, the answer should have been yes, we can do this. Here's a perfect opportunity for me not to be in charge and to give opportunity for someone that has skills to do that. Ava's experience with marriage prep, like my heart breaks for that, because it should be, in a sense, who are you? Who are the value of who you are as a couple, that you're coming to the church, this beautiful sacrament that the church offers, because you see value in this, and it should be life-giving, and it should be dialogue and hospitality. And I think we as religious can in some ways help that. We do run into clericalism with some of this, and we're all aware of that. But it's paying attention to the co-responsibility of who we are as church. And that beautiful word that was shared, that witness that we each give. I love that Sister Sarah said, we are not experts. Oh my Lord, I can't. I mean, there's just too much. I can't. So I rely on the gifts of others, that we can be co-responsible together, that we can give witness together. I want to jump back to what Ava said about like teaching 12-year-olds, and they see this fairness. I mean, that's who we are as church, in a sense. We say all are welcome, come, and then we start doing the like, oh, but. We're invited into that fairness of everyone bringing the value of who they are, and us being able to respond to that. It might make me uncomfortable. Oh Lord, I've had to sit in this office of mine and listen to people tell me stuff, and I'm like, I have nothing to say to you except offer you a space that is honoring the journey that you are on, and reminding you that God is meeting you in that journey. That is fairness that 12-year-olds are seeing, that the church is forgetting, that we are being called to help everyone see we're all in this together. It comes back to co-responsibility. So I just want to throw out again to what the panelists, the words that are standing out for me is hospitality, discernment, value, co-responsibility, and witness. I think that's who the church is called to be. I think that's what the Synod is calling us to be. And it's calling us forward into relationship with each other. And I saw one of the little things pop up in the chat, err on the side of welcome. That is who we are as religious. And that is ultimately what the church is supposed to do.
Thanks to all of you. That's really beautiful. I'm going to sort of say something on the other end, and hopefully this kind of makes sense as well. So yesterday I was at St. Mike's University, baccalaureate mass, talked to a young student, said she'd been to Catholic school her whole life. And she said, "You're a priest?" I said, yeah. So, she said, "I'm a really good Catholic." So I said, "Let me just ask you a question." I said, "How many sacraments are there?" And she said, "1." I was like, she goes, like the big one, like baptism. I was like, okay, that's good. But like there's 7. And she was shocked. Like she was like surprised that there are 7 sacraments. So my sense is that like there's a real burnout in terms of people who are doing marriage prep, or people who are in Catholic education in high schools, because I think our nucleus has just shrunken so much that it ends up being like the Jason show that he was describing, where it's going to be, Brother Michael doing this and Kevin doing this. And then in 2 years, Brother Michael and Jason and Kevin are all going to be exhausted because there's just nothing more to give. So I think in terms of marriage prep, Ava, like I think it's just a case probably of this person doing it for like the last 10 years, who's exhausted and is just trying to get through the rat wheel of doing that. And I feel for you in terms of going through something that everybody acknowledges should be beautiful, but that person probably doesn't have the bandwidth to be fed in their own lives to be able to make it beautiful. So I think that's my struggle is I think we all want to have this experience of God being wonderful and beautiful, but as the numbers kind of decline in the church, that sense of being nurtured and being fed is just harder and harder for each one of us to capture. And I think that's my struggle, is that it's kind of, and I really don't care if this person knows that it's 7 sacraments or 1 sacrament, but I do care that this person went through Catholic school and like has no sense that there's 7 sacraments, and that somehow like the other people I talk to, whether they're lay or clerical or whatever, just seem to be hanging on by our knuckles to be able to survive, let alone to be happy and vibrant and faithful and all of that stuff. So that's my struggle is I think the vision is outstanding. It's how do we live in ways and minister in ways and be co-responsible in ways that's life-giving for all of us. And I don't have an answer.
Kevin. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kevin.
absolutely. I
Ava.
think that and with that, I think it's a bit of a cycle that feeds into itself, because then when people are burned out, they can't provide what they are wanting to, and then people are stepping away because they don't feel like they have those things ready for them, and they lose those reasons to stay. So it is unfortunate. I think that what you said is absolutely true, and I think it is adding the problem and creating the problem and coming back on the problem, which is really, really challenging. There was 2 questions in the chat. If you don't mind, I speak to those ones.
Go for it. I was going to invite, yes. You're going to do Mary's? Yeah.
When I was thinking about what Brother Michael was saying about this sort of, and what Sister Sarah was talking about the expertism and thinking about, and I don't know, I'm very curious. I don't know what sort of your vision of yourself is for the religious on the call here. I don't know how you see yourself or how you think that others see you. But I am always really interested in this because I grew up as my parent worked in the diocese. And so I got to know a lot of priests growing up and a lot of nuns growing up, and got to sort of see how they react and how they interact with people when they're not on stage, and when they're not putting on a show. And so I got to see what that looked like. And I feel like it gave me a unique perspective on who are religious as real people and not just as the vision that their congregation sees them as. And so I feel like for me, that's very special for me because I was able to have, actually chat with people and see people as humans and not as priests. And that was always very nice. And so like I met, Santo when I was in grade 5, I think, at a conference. And so hi, Santo. And anyway, and so there's just a lot of great experiences that I was able to have. But a lot of my peers didn't have that. And so they're shocked to find out that a religious would have a beer or, have friends or, have a social life. And I always think that's very funny. What was my point here? Anyway, with the marriage prep, I guess I was really trying to think about like, what's the reason we're doing this? Why are we here to do this? And I find it was kind of tough because it felt like we were just like walking on eggshells, and it was like, I don't know, what are you looking for from us? Is this a test? Because then they're asking us about like, oh, how many sacraments are there? And I was like, 7. And then they're saying, okay, well, what is a sacrament? And I say it's God's a sign of God's invisible love in a visible form. And they're like, oh, you teach religion, don't you? And I'm like, yes, I do. And it sort of feels like that. It's like, what are you looking for? Is this a test? Is this learning? What are we trying to achieve here? And I was laughing because I got all this list of questions that we're supposed to go through with the priest, and he absolutely skates over all the things about sex. And I was like, yeah, no one wants to talk about that. That's okay. We don't want to talk with you about that either. So you just keep skating over that stuff. But it just made me also think like, why are we meeting? What is the goal of this? Is it so that you can make sure that we are entering into a lifelong commitment and we're ready for it? Is that what it is? And if so, maybe you shouldn't skate over that stuff. And if it isn't, then like why are we asking these questions? And why are we doing this? I also felt like, so they give you sort of a program. They just sort of give you this program. It's got this happy white couple on the front. There's, oh, isn't that nice? They're so ready for marriage and they're getting married. That's nice. And then you're reading through these chapters. And as I was reading, I was like, this is not made for someone who has thought deeply. This is for someone who is maybe 19 or 20 and they met they met someone and they want to get married right away, and they haven't even thought. There's a part in this chapter that talks about, like, it does this whole mathematical problem around how many minutes a year you'd actually spend having sex, and what are you going to do with the other amount of time? And I was like, I cannot believe that I'm reading this in paper. Like, is this actually what's going on? And I'm just bewildered that this is what's happening. And it just makes me think, like, is that the kind of preparation that our young adults need as they enter into the sacrament of marriage? I don't know. I didn't build this program. But I'm not sure exactly. I think we should ask why are we doing this? What is the goal of this? One of the things that was really great was getting to meet with a mentor couple. And so we were able to, the mentor couple we picked, the wife of this couple actually taught my husband in high school, and I grew up going to church with this couple. So it was sort of nice that we both knew them from separate things. And we were so much more similar than we knew. Like, we didn't know that, like, we actually just so happened, both us and the mentor couple deal with conflict in the same way in our relationship. And it was like, that was really beautiful. I really enjoyed that part of it. But then it also made me think of, like, I think if me and TJ have issues, I don't think I'll be talking to that priest about it. And it's like, is that why we're meeting? Is so that I would feel more comfortable about that? And I just don't know how much he'll offer in terms of conflict resolution between me and a romantic partner. Anyway, I'm just curious about these things. And I'm not sure if it's because we've been doing this for so long that we're just continuing to do it, or what is the reasoning that we're doing this? And is this about hospitality? Is this about welcoming? Like, why are we doing this? And I'd like to know before I met that priest, I was like, I can't tell if this is a test or not, because I actually don't even know why I'm meeting with you. Like what is the reason? And and they say, oh, you have to do, you can only pick these songs, and you can only pick these intentions, and you can only pick these readings. And but also because I sort of had some of that confidence, I was like, oh, I'm going to choose the readings. Me and my partner are going to work together on the intentions, so we can make this reflective of us as a couple. But I don't know that other couples would have done that. I think they would have been like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble with the priest, so I better do it exactly like they said. And then are they really getting what they need? And is that why they're getting married in the church? Or are they doing it because their parents said they should? Like, why are we doing this? To finish that off with, I was also thinking about where Sister Sarah was talking about meeting them where they are, and we're talking about walking with each other. And I think sometimes we forget that just means building a relationship and, like, having a friendship and having a connection. And I think there was a question about, like, if we're talking about Synod and sharing feelings and sharing where we're at, how do you understand where people are at? How do you know where they're at? You're not going to get that unless they actually feel comfortable sharing with you. If you want to know where someone is at, you have to have a certain amount of vulnerability in your relationship so you can actually hear them and they can hear you, and you can have that conversation, that mutual respect and that mutual understanding that you're both trying to work towards a solution. You both know why you're there for certain reasons, and you want to work together. If you just want to hear what people have to say, well, then you can just look into any comment section, because people are going to be very willing to tell you exactly whatever they want to say, but that might not give you a true vision of what they're feeling in their heart, because you don't get that when you just open things up and anybody can say anything at any time. That's not going to get to any kind of vulnerable or truthful feelings that people feel like they need to be heard in that way. I don't think you're going to get that when you open it up very large. I think you need to have that connection if you're really going to do that.
I'd just like to intervene by just making a comment. We had a huge invitation from Pope Francis when he opened up a synodality tent and invited all, and he didn't invite us Catholics or we religious or priests. He invited all to come into the tent. And I attended a synodality meeting in our parish. And I was surprised to see the crowd that was in the hall, including young people, and especially the young people. Now, by young people, I'm talking high school and university students. The meeting went on for about an hour, and we started to get lectured by the two priests that were there, and the bishop who was there. And we have a structure in the Catholic Church where we are awestruck by this kind of demeanor. When Father opens his mouth, shut up and listen. And if a bishop dares to open his mouth, my goodness, you almost want to stand up and listen. So after the coffee break, which after an hour and a half, I went to the organizers and I said, have you noticed that a lot of people in the hall have not opened their mouths? So may I make a suggestion as regards structure? So why don't we divide ourselves up into 7 or 8 groups for half an hour and then go to the questions that are there and allow people to express themselves? Because I've watched the group, and some people, we could sit here for a week and some of these people are never opening their mouths and some people don't know when to shut up. So lo and behold, the 3 organizers said, oh, brother, that's a very good idea. Let's do that. And we did. I just want to say that it worked to a certain extent because we didn't put all the young people in one group. They had 7 groups and they just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. So all the 1s go here, all the 2s go there. So actually, if you were sitting beside your friend, you weren't in his or her group. It was as simple as that. And a lot of the young people sat together, and the religious and the elderly. So I'm saying sometimes we have to devise a method in our little heads to see how we can best implement it to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to speak and to be heard and to look at the situation in which we find ourselves, especially as religious. I don't, if I had to put all the baggage that I was trained and brought up with in the Catholic Church, there isn't a 747 in this world big enough to hold it all. It's as simple as that. And if we accept that sometimes we're not the solution, we actually are the problem. We're the barrier. We're the ones who are throwing up all this stuff, which we think is correct. And I don't deny that for a second. But I really think that we have to look at methodologies, ways and means of being able to invite the youth to come. And if they dare do, it's already a huge success. Then how do you get them to come out of themselves? I promised myself I was going to listen and shut up tonight, and I
Thank you, Dennis.
Already broke my resolution.
Thank you, Dennis. You raise a good point, and you make me scroll back up in the chat to Michael's question of earlier in our time together. Our Canadian bishops wrote a letter to youth, and youth in their mind is ages 12 to 35. And I'm not sure if Michael's asking us if the bishops are aware of the demographic that Brother Michael spoke of. But when we hear, so Francis says there's room for everybody in the tent, widen the space of the tent. But then there seems to be a lack of connecting maybe from our Catholic bishops when they put one letter out to 12 to 35-year-olds. Anybody want to comment on, to be honest, I haven't read the letter. So Michael, you know more than I, but when the institution is grouping that broad a demographic together, what do we do?
The institution is doing that. It means that they are not paying attention to what we've been talking about hospitality, value, co-responsibility, witness. All that whole age demographic, every person in the church has value. But I'm looking at that age demographic, 12 to 35. I have a 12-year-old nephew whose only focus right now is I'm playing summer football. And I have one of my best friends who's married, who has 3 children, who's trying to figure out, how am I going to make this all work this weekend? Because church is important to us and they're all doing something. So what is that saying to those people? My 12-year-old nephew could care less what the bishops of Canada are saying. 35-year-old friend is intrigued by that, but is trying to live out his faith in a concrete, real way. So once again, how do we welcome everybody and how do we pay attention? We can't just keep grouping everybody. And Ava's mentioned this, it doesn't work. We can't just group everybody. It's not going to work. How do we bring everybody into the tent so that we hear their voices? It's questions that we keep asking ourselves that we don't necessarily have clear answers for. but are we listening to each other in how we can support each other and see the value in the other person, what they can contribute? What can the 12-year-old contribute that's different than the 35-year-old? And I think we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I just want to jump off of that because I think that's a really important way to look at things. As Brother Michael says, a 12-year-old, what they're going to contribute or what they can contribute, and a 35-year-old, what they can contribute. It's two different things. And if we have the same expectation for both, it's obviously not going to be very helpful. So that's where that, walking with people, accompanying them, meeting them where they're at, where that comes really into play. And then I kind of want to connect that to the idea of burnout as well, right? Burnout for people who might already be involved in ministry, and maybe a sense that they might have of it's what's the point, or it's not working out. They're not going to come to the mass anyways. Why am I doing this confirmation class? They'll come for confirmation class every day, every month for 8 months, get confirmed, and then I won't see them again until they get married. So what's the point of even putting in the effort, right? We have to accompany people where they're and be with them where they're at. And then at the same time, we also need to create opportunities for others to lead, right? So I'm thinking, for example, of Father Santo with his Ignite ministry, young adult ministry. I'm not part of the organizing side of that ministry, but every time I go to an Ignited event, there are 5, 6, 7 young people, young adults who are there organizing, setting things up, helping to run the show, right? So if Father Santo tries to run the show on his own, then that would obviously be very overwhelming or very difficult to maintain a high level of energy. But by opening it up for others who have the potential, meeting them where they're at, not giving all the responsibility on one, but recognizing that, some might be good at sending out email communication, some might be good at the physical setup of the location, some might be good with helping to prepare the meal that's going to be served. Recognizing people's God-given gifts and then supporting them to use those gifts in the way that those individuals want and feel called to use them. That's how we accompany people. That's how we walk together with people. So if we try to fit people, around the peg into a square hole, it's not going to work. But if we meet them where they're at, we recognize that, the 12-year-old is only interested in playing video games or playing sports. Well, as Ava said, like, let's build a relationship with them. Let's build the relationship and not worry so much. Can they tell me the 10 commandments in the exact order? Can they tell me the sacraments and the significance and the Bible basis of each sacrament? At that point, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe all that matters is that we build that relationship so that later on, if they have questions, if they have concerns, if they're curious about their faith, if they want to, contribute to the parish community, then they already have a relationship with the religious, with the priest, with the lay leader, and then they can have that trust and go and speak to them and see, how can I contribute? I feel called to contribute. How can I contribute? Right. So just kind of, just focusing on meeting people where they're at, and if we lower our expectations instead of trying to, want everyone to be the way that 50 years ago, maybe everyone by the time they were 20, 50 years ago could, recite, half the catechism. I'm not sure if that was true, but let's just say, right, the way things were in the past, it's not the way it is right now. And so if we meet people where they are right now, then maybe we can give them a chance to feel connected to the church, and then they'll have the opportunity to use their gifts for the betterment of the whole community.
Thanks, Kevin. Anybody want to jump in on that? I have one more question. We're gonna go hope. What gives you hope, friends? And maybe, we have 6 panelists, but what gives you hope? Why are you sticking around? Why did you say yes when you got a letter from Sister Nancy saying, would you participate in this panel conversation?
Hope for me is the opportunity that I've heard in the stories from Kevin and Ava and Jason, and how I see that as church and as relationship that the bigger church is being invited to pay attention to, and how us as religious can be part of that bridge. That is hope for me, that we continue to meet amazing people that live what it means to be a follower of Christ. And that encourages, I think, us that have made vows in a very different way. So that's what hope is for me.
Thanks, Michael.
To jump off on what Brother Michael was mentioning as well, I think for me, the thing that gives hope, the word that comes to mind is the word potential. Earlier, I was talking about the gifts, the charisms, and it just takes that one special person to identify and to say that, wow, you have that gift. You should really use that and to show it to the world. And in response to your faith, I see that there's a lot of gifts that the young people have, that young adults also have to share. And so for me, it's seeing that potential to then gear that for them to see that it is a gift given by God and should be used accordingly as well.
Thank you.
For me, I think the hope is in relationship. I think encountering each other, we are encountering God. And so it's just this dynamic that happens when we are walking together, that we are encountering God as we are with each other. And in God, there is eternal hope. So I think that's, yeah, that's.
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm waiting for Sister Violin or Eva, but I'll give them a second to think some more. And I'll say for me, hope is seeing all of you here, right? Here because you came to listen and to participate somehow in this discussion. So that gives me hope that that we haven't just given up on the church or decided that things are not heading in a good direction. There's no point in trying. Let's just stop making any effort, right? The fact that people join this call, I think that gives me hope. And it also gives me hope thinking about the group that I'm part of, the Concerned Lay Catholics group. I think Sister Violin mentioned about clericalism and how it's still very prevalent in our church institution, and it could be easy to let that diminish our expectations or our hope for the future. But if we recognize that the Holy Spirit is at work right now, and with the Synod on synodality, that this is an opportunity for us to to rethink some of the structures we have and the way that we've been doing things, and to look at co-responsibility and like Jason said about the potential that that young people can bring. That gives me hope. Keeping all of that in mind and just thinking about what can we do with what God has given us and the young people we have. What can we do to help bring about the reign of God?
Thanks, Kevin. You go. No, you go. No, you go.
OK, c'est bon. Puisque tu me le demandes, Ava. Ben moi aussi, je trouve que ce qui m'apporte de l'espoir, de l'espérance, c'est ce qu'on vit. Cette rencontre-là m'en donne beaucoup. Mais c'est ce que j'ai entendu aussi, c'est de bâtir des relations, c'est de prendre le temps, de créer des occasions. Oui.
Yelena, I'm not sure the translation is working.
OK, I can speak in English if you want. Non, il y a des gens qui parlent français.
No, but it's okay now. It's fine.
Okay,
yeah.
There we go. I hear. Go ahead.
It's because we
Yelena,
switched.
sorry.
We switched.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start over again because that's what I wanted to say. What really gives me hope, yes, hope, is, having interpreters who know what I'm saying. Ha, ha, ha. That's how she thinks she's funny. But anyway, okay. So it's what we're living here tonight. You know, what we experienced here tonight is to listen to what was said, to hear what was said, the importance of building relationships, trust, and meetings like this so that we can listen to one another. Because of all the things that we've said, we've talked about listening. We need to take the time to listen. And that gives me hope, because that's how we're going to really get to know one another and live co-responsibility. To, you know, when we talk about co-responsibility, it also depends on the witness we want to give. But what gives me hope is the authenticity of the young people who are with us. Yeah, and ourselves, you know, to see one another, to be able to see one another on the screen tonight, you know, together. And I really like the honesty, the authenticity, Jason, your passion for young people, and Kevin, your truth, you know, and everything that you're experiencing. This gives me hope. And to listen to Michael too. And I didn't hear myself, you know, no joke. But anyway, to see us all together like that and to listen to one another gives me hope. That's what it means to walk together for me. And I want more of this. I want more meetings like this. Because we said that during the conference, we said, but I think this is a first step, but it can't just stop there.
Thank you, Violaine.
I think when I think about hope, I recently was talking to someone about how hope and despair live in the same house and that they are related so closely. And so I think there's a lot of times where when we see, you know, the hurt that the church has caused, there can be so much despair with that. But we also have seen very recently in Canada that there has been healing that has happened as well. It was so impactful that the Pope came to Canada and apologized for what had happened at residential schools. And I don't know if this is because I'm an Indigenous person, but that was not a surprise to me when the unmarked graves started to be uncovered. Like, we knew that kids didn't come home. We knew what happened at those schools. So when some people found out about that, that was quite shocking. It was upsetting, but not surprising for me. I think the numbers was what was the hardest part. I didn't think that it had been quite, I had no idea it was quite that much. And so when that was happening, there were a lot of people and a lot of teachers, you know, colleagues as Catholic teachers who talked about, like, should I still be part of the church? Like, they're really asking these big questions about, like, is this what the church is? And is this what I've been a part of? And is this what I'm condoning as being a part of the Catholic Church? And when those questions were being asked, my answer was sort of the same as it always had been, which is like, I know why I'm part of the Catholic Church, and the Indigenous people who are also Catholic also know why they're still part of the church. And it's not because we're ignoring all the things that have made people walk away, but it's because we know the reasons why we're staying. We know the reasons why there's so much in Catholicism that speaks to your heart and to your experience. And the reasons why you want to stay, because of a relationship and understanding of suffering, and how someone so divine would have suffered with you, and that person who was suffering alongside you, that they said to reach out to everybody, and they said that family was important, and connection was important, and community was important, and all these reasons why we are all part of this in the first place. The reason why all of us have wanted to commit to the conference or come to this call and share our feelings is because we do want this. We want there to be a community, and we want to have a place in it. We want to have everybody else who's in the world who's not on this call. We want them to feel like they are welcome here, and that they have something valuable to say. And we have such a strong belief that this is important, that this is worthwhile, and it matches that despair with the hurt of why the church has estranged people or made them feel marginalized, when our whole goal is to reach out to the marginalized. I think there's so much hope that lives with that despair, and just like there's so much faith that lives with the doubt. But all of us have such a commitment, and that is so inspiring to see the commitment of the fellow panelists and all of you here. And every day when I come to school and I see kids and their willingness to learn and their willingness to make mistakes and to reflect and to think about, what am I doing? How can I do it better? And that's what all of us are doing here. And it's beautiful, and it is so, so hopeful.
Wow. And you give me hope. So anyway, my friends, everywhere but Newfoundland is reaching the bottom of the hour. Newfoundland is reaching the top of the hour. So I do think that we might be time to conclude. I hate to say last thoughts because we're going to go past our 90 minutes, but maybe we'll just hold everything that has been. Nancy, Sister Nancy, I'll send it back to you then as we hold all the value and all the grace that has been in these minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Sue, and all the panelists for this wonderful conversation tonight. I'm sure all of us feel very inspired and hope-filled, and there were some specific suggestions that were made that I hope wherever we can, we've got people on the call from all over, that we could do what we can to change things up. So thank you all, the panelists, and Sue especially, and for all of you for coming tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Many blessings.
Yeah, you can unmute yourselves now.
You're free.
Or maybe you.
Merci, Nancy. Merci, Stu.
Merci.
Merci, tout
Merci
le
tout le
monde.
monde. Merci beaucoup, Kevin, puis Dennis,
Awesome.
tout le monde.
Merci les interprètes.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful.
Great.
I'm sure we'll see the video. We'll get the video by YouTube.
Oh my, thank you.